The rain sounds different when you can't see it. Elias Hawthorne knew this the way other men knew their wives' perfume or the weight of their children. He knew it in the percussion of water against glass, 43 stories up, in the whisper of it sliding down steel and stone. Tonight it sounded angry, vengeful. He sat motionless in his leather chair, expensive, Italian leather that cost more than most people's cars, and listened to the storm rage against his penthouse windows. His fingers rested lightly on the white cane beside him. An affectation, really, since he never left this glass cage anymore. Outside, Manhattan glittered and pulsed with 10,000 lives he would never see. Inside, there was only darkness. And her. The humming Maya Ruiz was humming again. She did this when she was nervous, when something was eating at her from the inside. Elias had learned her tells over the 6 months she'd worked as his live-in aide. The daughter of the building's night shift janitor, she'd needed money for community college. He'd needed someone who wouldn't pity him or treat him like blown glass. What he'd gotten was a sharp-tongued hurricane in a maintenance uniform who argued with him about everything from coffee temperature to commute. The mop swished across his marble floors. Swish, swish. Her humming threaded through the sound, an old Sinatra tune he couldn't quite place. Something about the rain. Of course it was about the rain. Stop. His voice cut through the darkness like a blade. The humming ceased. The mopping didn't. You're gonna have to be more specific, Mr. Hawthorne. Stop mopping. Stop breathing. Stop existing in your general vicinity. The humming. You always hum that when you're nervous. He tilted his head, tracking her movement by sound alone. Why tonight? Silence. Just rain hammering glass and his own heartbeat suddenly loud in his ears. Maya. It's nothing. Liar. She sighed, and he heard the mop clatter into the bucket. Footsteps approached. Light, quick, the gait of someone who'd learned to move through the world without taking up too much space. She stopped 3 feet away. He could smell her shampoo, something cheap and coconut-scented from the drugstore. Fine. You really want to know? Her voice had changed, dropped an octave into something that made the hair on his arm stand up. There's this story, an old one, urban legend maybe, about power and pride and what happens when you treat people like they're disposable. I don't deal in fairy tales, Maya. It's not a fairy tale. Closer now. He felt her presence like heat, like gravity. They say a mafia boss once blocked his wife at his own coronation party. Elias went very still. And it killed her, Maya continued, each word deliberate, in exactly 90 seconds. The temperature in the room dropped. Or maybe that was just his blood running cold. His fingers tightened on the cane until his knuckles ached. That's... He stopped, swallowed. That's impossible. Is it? She was right in front of him now. He sensed her sinking down, kneeling so her face would be level with his even though he couldn't see it. Her voice came soft and close, intimate as a confession. You asked why I was nervous, Mr. Hawthorne. It's because of the date, and because I've never told anyone the whole story before. The whole story. Every second of it. Every terrible, beautiful, tragic second. A pause. Do you want to hear it? From the beginning? He should say no. He should tell her to finish mopping and leave him alone with his insomnia and his ghosts. He should maintain the careful distance he'd built between himself and the rest of humanity after the accident took his sight. Instead, he whispered, Tell me. The story begins. Maya's voice changed again, became someone else's, younger, desperate, doomed. The champagne tasted like lies. Elias leaned forward. He couldn't help it. I stood at the edge of the glittering ballroom, Maya continued, and now she wasn't Maya anymore. She was someone speaking from beyond a grave, channeling a ghost through her vocal cords. Watching my husband laugh with a woman whose dress cost more than our wedding. The Castellano Hotel was a monument to excess that night. Crystal chandeliers threw prisms across marble floors. Men in suits that cost more than cars. Women draped in diamonds that could ransom kingdoms. Elias could see it. God help him. Even blind he could see it. The ballroom assembling itself in his mind from her words like a summoning. This was his coronation party. The night Alan the Prince Long would be crowned king of the eastern seaboard's underworld. And I was his queen, his Phoebe. The name came out like a prayer and a curse. We'd met in a Brooklyn diner 6 years before. He was nobody then, just a soldier with kind eyes and hands that shook when he held mine. He said I made him want to be better, cleaner. A bitter laugh. I believed him. God, I believed every word. The rain intensified outside, hammering harder as if the weather itself was responding to the story. Tonight his eyes were somewhere else. On her. Valentina Corsetti, daughter of the old guard he was about to replace. She touched his arm, whispered something. He threw his head back and laughed, and in that moment I realized. I'd married a man who was always going to choose power over me. Status over us. The crown over the woman who'd held him when he woke up screaming from nightmares about the things he'd done. Elias realized he'd stopped breathing. So, I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. I typed, I'm pregnant. We need to leave. Now. Before the toast. Jesus, Elias breathed. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. Maya's voice was clinical now, detached, narrating an autopsy. I watched him feel the vibration in his pocket, watched him pull out his phone, watched his face as he read it. And he looked up, found me across that sea of criminals and sycophants. Our eyes met. For 3 seconds, I saw him, the real him, the boy from the diner, surface one last time. He mouthed something. I think it was, I'm sorry. Elias's heart was a war drum. Then Salvatelli clapped him on the shoulder, hard enough to break the moment. Said something about speeches and toasts and destiny. Alan looked at his phone again. His thumb moved to reply. Maya paused. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. But Sal leaned in, whispered something, nodded toward Valentina, and I watched my husband's face change, watched the boy disappear and the prince, the boss, slide into place like a mask. His thumb moved again. But this time, what did he do? He slid the block contact toggle. The words fell into the silence like stones into a well. Just like that. Clean. Decisive. The way he made all his decisions that night. And across the ballroom, I felt it. Felt the connection sever like a wire snapping. Tried to call, it went straight to silence. Tried to text. Gray bubble. Undelivered. I was erased, deleted, made invisible with a single gesture while 300 people cheered and raised their glasses to the man who just murdered me. Elias's hand shot out, found her wrist, gripped it hard enough to hurt. His voice came out wrecked. Keep going. I need to know what happened in those 90 seconds. In the darkness of his penthouse, with rain turning the windows into rivers, Maya Allen Ruiz looked at the blind billionaire holding on to her like she was the last solid thing in the world. And she told him how her mother died. The rain sounds different when you can't see it. Elias Hawthorne knew this the way other men knew their wives' perfume or the weight of their children. At 2:13 a.m., he sat motionless in his leather chair, fingers resting on the white cane he barely needed anymore. Not in this glass cage 43 stories above Manhattan. The storm lashed the floor-to-ceiling windows with a violence that made him think of endings. The mop swished across marble. Swish, swish, hypnotic, lonely, and underneath it, that humming again. Maya Ruiz always hummed when she was nervous. An old Sinatra tune he couldn't quite place. Something about rain and regret. She'd worked as his live-in aide for 6 months now, the janitor's daughter who'd needed tuition money and gotten herself trapped in a penthouse with a reclusive blind billionaire who treated conversation like combat. Stop. The humming ceased. The mopping didn't. You're gonna have to be more specific, Mr. Hawthorne. Stop existing. Stop breathing. Stop reminding you that other people occupy space in your ivory tower. The humming. He tilted his head, tracking her by sound alone. You will always hum that when you're nervous. Why tonight? The mop clattered into the bucket. Her footsteps approached. Light, quick, the gait of someone who'd learned not to take up too much space in the world. She stopped close enough that he could smell her cheap coconut shampoo, sensed the heat of her presence like gravity pulling at him. There's this story, she said, and her voice had changed, dropped into something that made his skin prickle. Urban legend, maybe, about power and pride and what happens when you treat people like they're disposable. I don't deal in fairy tales, Maya. It's not a fairy tale. Closer now. He felt her sink down, kneeling so her voice would be level with his face even though he couldn't see it. They say a Mafia boss once blocked his wife at his own coronation party, and it killed her in exactly 90 seconds. Elias went very still. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Is it?" Her breath was warm against his cheek. "You asked why I was nervous, Mr. Hawthorne. It's because of the date. Because I've never told anyone the whole story before. Every second of it." His throat tightened. "Tell me, from the beginning?" Maya's voice transformed, became someone else's, younger, desperate, doomed. The champagne tasted like lies. I stood at the edge of the glittering ballroom, watching my husband laugh with a woman whose dress cost more than our wedding. The Castellano Hotel was drowning in excess that night. Crystal chandeliers threw diamond light across marble floors slick enough to skate on. Men in suits worth more than cars. Women draped in jewels that could ransom kingdoms. This was Alan Long's coronation party. The night the prince would become king of the eastern seaboard's underworld, and I was supposed to be his queen. Elias could see it. God help him, even blind he could see the ballroom assembling itself from her words. We'd met in a Brooklyn diner 6 years before. He was nobody then, just a soldier with kind eyes and hands that shook when he held mine. He said I made him want to be better, cleaner. I believed him. I believed every beautiful lie because I was 22 and stupid and so desperately in love I couldn't see what he was becoming. Maya's voice cracked on the last word. But tonight his eyes were somewhere else, on Valentina Corsetti, daughter of the old guard he was replacing. She touched his arm, whispered something. He threw his head back and laughed, and I realized I'd married a man who would always choose power over me, the crown over the woman who held him when he woke up screaming. The rain hammered harder, as if the storm itself was listening. So I pulled out my phone. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. I typed, "I'm pregnant. We need to leave. Now. Before the toast." I hit send at 11:47 p.m. Watched him feel the vibration in his pocket. Watched him pull out his phone, read it. His face went white. He looked up, found me across a sea of criminals and sycophants. Our eyes met. For 3 seconds, I saw the real him surface one last time. He mouthed something. I think it was, "I'm sorry." Elias had stopped breathing. Then Salvatelli clapped him on the shoulder, hard enough to break the moment, said something about speeches and destiny. Alan looked at his phone again. His thumb moved. I thought he was typing back. Thought, maybe there was still a chance. What did he do? He slid the block contact toggle, just like that. Clean, decisive, the way he made every decision that mattered. And I felt it, Mr. Hawthorne, felt the connection sever like a wire snapping. I tried to call, straight to silence, tried to text, gray bubble, undelivered. I was erased, deleted, made invisible with a single gesture while 300 people cheered for the man who just killed me. Elias's hand shot out, found her wrist in the darkness, gripped it hard enough to hurt. His voice came out shaking. "Keep going. I need to know what happened in those 90 seconds. Maya's voice steadied, became clinical, precise, a coroner narrating an autopsy. 90 seconds before Phoebe Allen died, her husband blocked her contact. It was 11:47 and 30 seconds p.m. His thumb, she'd kissed that thumb 1,000 times, slid the toggle with the casual efficiency of a man signing an execution order. Around him, the capos cheered. Someone shouted, "To the prince!" And crystal glasses rose like a forest of knives catching the light. Alan smiled, slipped his phone into his breast pocket, and reached for the microphone. Elias's breathing changed, grew shallow and quick. His grip on Maya's wrist tightened. What did the ballroom smell like? His voice was hoarse, urgent. "Tell me everything." Maya closed her eyes even though he couldn't see it. Expensive cologne, Tom Ford and Creed and old money arrogance. Champagne, the real stuff. Vintage Dom Perignon that effervesced like liquid gold. And underneath it all, something darker. Cigar smoke, gun oil on hidden holsters. The metallic tang of men who'd killed and would kill again before sunrise. The dress, what color was her dress? White. Ivory white silk that cost $3,000 and clung to her like water, like a second skin. She'd bought it to make him proud, to look like a queen at his coronation. It had a slit up the left thigh and a neckline that made old Italian men cross themselves. Her dark hair was pinned up with pearls. Real ones. Black market goods from a Hong Kong deal gone right. Elias's face was rigid, carved from stone. But something glistened on his cheek. Maya had never seen him cry. Not once in 6 months. Not when he'd stumbled and split his forehead open on the coffee table. Not when his mother's lawyer called to say she'd changed her will again, cutting him out entirely. Never. She kept going because she had to. Because this story had waited 10 years to be told and wouldn't wait any longer. 75 seconds before she died, Phoebe's screen went dark. Not dead. Worse. Blocked. That specific kind of digital death where you cease to exist to the person you love most. She stared at her phone for 5 seconds. Maybe 6. Tried to process what just happened. Then she looked up at the stage where Alan was adjusting the microphone, laughing at something Sal said. His face, Elias demanded. What did his face look like when he blocked her? Maya's voice went cold. Nothing. That's the thing that killed her before she even left the building. His face showed nothing. No regret, no hesitation, just calculation. The same look he probably wore when he ordered hits or negotiated territory. He'd made a choice. Power over love, the crown over the woman carrying his child. And there was no conflict in it. Not even a shadow. Jesus Christ. 60 seconds before she died, Phoebe started moving. She didn't run at first. She walked, her heels clicking against marble like a metronome counting down to disaster. The crowd was thick, 300 bodies between her and the stage. She pushed through them, white dress flowing behind her like a ghost shroud. People turned, annoyed, then saw her face and stepped back. Because she looked like death already, like a woman who'd been erased and was trying to prove she still existed. In the present, in the darkness of the penthouse, Elias's breathing had become ragged, almost panicked. Did anyone try to stop her? No one noticed, or they pretended not to. That's how it works in that world, Mr. Hawthorne. You see everything and nothing. You look away when it's convenient. Phoebe made it halfway to the stage before Alan began his speech. His voice boomed through the sound system. Tonight, we don't just celebrate power. We celebrate family. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so obscene. Another tear tracked down Elias's face. Silent. Devastating. She kept pushing forward. Her phone clutched in one hand, the other pressing against her still flat stomach where their daughter was growing. Cells dividing. A future being written that would never include a father. She was 30 feet away when Alan raised his glass. That poisoned 1961 Dom Perignon, someone else had prepared. Someone with their own vengeance to serve. 20 feet away when the crowd roared approval. 10 feet when she opened her mouth to scream his name. Did he see her? No. He was looking at Valentina. Always at Valentina. And Phoebe realized in that moment, 60 seconds from death, that she'd already lost. That the man she loved was gone, and this prince, this king, this monster in her husband's skin would drink poison and die and never even know she tried to save him. Maya's voice broke on the last word. Elias was crying openly now, tears streaming down his face in the darkness, his hands still locked around her wrist like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. What did she do? He whispered. She ran. Maya's voice accelerated, words tumbling faster now, urgent, like she was racing against the clock herself. 60 seconds. Alan raised the crystal flute, that beautiful, deadly 1961 Dom Perignon, $43,000 a bottle, poisoned 3 hours earlier by someone who understood revenge better than love. The liquid caught the chandelier light, golden and perfect and fatal. He smiled that prince's smile, the one that had charmed senators and terrified rivals, and began, "To family, to loyalty, to the empire we'll build together." Elias's whole body was trembling now. Phoebe turned. She couldn't reach him through the crowd, couldn't fight through 300 bodies in time to stop what was coming. So she did the only thing left. She ran for the side exit, her heels catching on marble, nearly tripping. She kicked them off without stopping. $3,000 Louboutins bouncing across the floor like discarded dreams. 50 seconds. Faster, Elias whispered. Tell me faster. She burst through the emergency exit into pouring rain. It hit her like a wall, cold October rain that soaked through silk in seconds. The alley behind the Castellano was dark, narrow, wet asphalt gleaming under a single streetlight. She ran barefoot toward the street, white dress plastered to her body, hair falling from its pins. She was screaming his name. Alan! Alan! Like, if she screamed loud enough, he'd hear her through concrete and glass and 300 people. 45 seconds. Maya's voice cracked, but she pushed through. Inside, Alan brought the glass to his lips. The crowd held its breath. This was the moment. The coronation, the crossing, the point of no return. Phoebe reached the mouth of the alley, still screaming, her voice raw and breaking. She didn't see the car. 40 seconds. A black Mercedes SUV doing 50 in a 30 zone, driver drunk or high or just not paying attention because it was raining and visibility was shit, and who expects a woman in a white dress to come flying out of an alley at midnight? Elias stood up so fast his cane clattered to the marble floor. The sound cracked through the penthouse like a gunshot. Did she suffer? His voice was barely human. Tell me she didn't suffer. Maya looked up at him from where she still knelt. This blind billionaire towering over her in the darkness, tears streaming down his face, hands clenched into fists at his sides. Her voice came out broken. She suffered. No! The driver saw her at the last second, 35 seconds, slammed the brakes, but it was too late. The rain made the street a skating rink. Tires screamed. The SUV hit her at 47 miles per hour. The impact lifted her 6 feet off the ground. She flew. Actually flew, Mr. Hawthorne, like some terrible angel in white silk, arms spread, hair streaming behind her. Then physics remembered she was human, and she came down hard on the asphalt 20 feet away. Elias made a sound like he'd been stabbed. Blood bloomed across the white dress immediately. Ribs broken. 3 of them, shattered on impact. Left lung punctured. Hip fractured. Head trauma. Internal bleeding. She should have died instantly. Most people would have. But Phoebe was pregnant and angry and absolutely refused to leave this world without one last message. 30 seconds. Oh, God. Inside, Alan drank. The poison hit his bloodstream fast. Fast-acting neurotoxin, probably batrachotoxin, the kind that shuts down sodium channels in nerve cells within seconds. He smiled, set down the glass, opened his mouth to continue his speech. His hand went to his throat. 25 seconds. Maya's voice was shaking now, tears streaming down her own face. Outside, Phoebe was crawling. Can you picture it, Mr. Hawthorne? This woman with broken ribs, punctured lung, blood pouring from a head wound, dragging herself across wet asphalt in a white dress that was turning red. The driver had gotten out, was screaming, calling 911. She ignored him. She was crawling toward her phone. It had skittered across the pavement when she was hit, landed 15 feet away near a storm drain. 20 seconds. Okay, pause. I need to know, where are you right now? Your city, your country, your cozy reading corner at 2 a.m.? Comment below, because I'm genuinely curious who's getting emotionally destroyed by this story with me. And hey, if you're invested enough to care whether Phoebe reaches that phone, the subscribe button is right there. Consider it a blood oath between us. All right, deep breath. Let's finish this. Why? Elias's voice was anguished. Why the phone? Because she knew. Somehow she knew what was happening inside. Knew the toast was poison. Knew he was dying. Knew this was the end for both of them. And even after he erased her, blocked her, deleted her from his life, she still wanted to save him. Still wanted him to know. 15 seconds. The rain hammered against the windows, punctuating every word. Her fingers were bleeding. She left blood trails on the asphalt like war paint. Every inch forward cost her agony, but she kept moving because love doesn't stop just because someone stops deserving it. 15 seconds, Maya whispered, and time itself seemed to slow down in the telling. Inside the ballroom, Alan's smile froze. His hand flew to his throat. The microphone crashed to the floor, feedback shrieking through the speakers. Salvitelli grabbed his shoulder, shouting something, but Alan couldn't hear anymore. The toxin was spreading through his nervous system like wildfire, shutting down neurons, collapsing the architecture of his body from the inside out. His mouth opened. No sound came, just this awful gasping, fish out of water suffocation. His eyes went wide with terror. 12 seconds. Elias had sunk to the floor, kneeling on the marble, hands pressed flat against the cold stone. Outside, Phoebe's fingers closed around her phone. The screen was cracked, a spiderweb of broken glass that cut her palm. She didn't feel it, didn't feel anything except the countdown in her chest, her own clock ticking down alongside his. She pulled the phone close to her face. Rain hammered down, mixing with blood, turning her into something between woman and ghost. 10 seconds. Maya's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Her thumb, shaking, bleeding, dying, navigated through her phone. She had to squint through the rain and the pain and the darkness creeping in at the edges of her vision. Found his contact. Still there. Still blocked. That toggle that had severed everything. 8 seconds. No, Elias breathed. She smashed the unblock contact button with her bloody thumb. The connection opened. That digital wall between them collapsed. She hit call. Inside the ballroom, Alan's phone rang. Someone pulled it from his breast pocket. Sal, maybe, looking for help, for answers. The screen lit up. Phoebe. 6 seconds. Tears were pouring down Elias's face, dripping onto his expensive marble floors. Sal held the phone to Alan's ear, and through the speaker, over the rain and chaos and sirens that were finally, uselessly approaching, Alan heard her voice. Just a whisper. Just a ghost. "Baby?" she said. "Baby, I'm here." 4 seconds. Alan's eyes found the phone even though he couldn't speak anymore. His throat was closing, but he forced out one word. One last word. "Phoebes?" Maya was crying now too, remembering something she'd never witnessed but had lived with every day of her life. Phoebe smiled. This tiny, broken smile through blood and rain. She said, "Too late, baby." 2 seconds. Alan collapsed on the stage, body convulsing, Capo screaming for doctors, for someone to do something. His eyes were still open, still conscious. The worst kind of poison, the kind that lets you know you're dying. 1 second. Outside, Phoebe closed her eyes, still holding the phone, still connected to him. They died 30 feet apart, together and utterly, devastatingly alone. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Just rain. Just Elias's ragged breathing. Just the ghost of a story that refused to stay buried. He looked up blindly at where Maya knelt, his face destroyed, and gasped, "Tell me the last twist, the one nobody knows. Please." Maya leaned close enough that her lips almost touched his ear, and whispered the secret that had shaped her entire existence. 3 months before that night, Phoebe found the books. The real ones. The ones that proved Alan had been laundering money through 17 shell corporations across 6 countries. She made copies, encrypted them, and that morning, the morning of his coronation, she mailed them to the FBI. A flash drive in a padded envelope addressed to the director himself. She knew what was coming. Maybe not the specifics, but she knew the kind of man her husband had become. Knew he'd choose power. Knew it would end badly. Elias's hands fisted in his hair. So, she also moved the money. $40 million in life insurance policies Alan had taken out on himself, policies with her as sole beneficiary. She transferred it all into an irrevocable trust, 3 days before the party, for their unborn daughter. Every penny locked away where the talking FBI couldn't seize it, where Alan's enemies couldn't touch it, where their child would be protected no matter what. My God. She died saving the man who killed her, Mr. Hawthorne. She unblocked him with her last breath, called him, warned him even though it was too late, and he still choked to death 30 feet away from her body on that stage, drowning in his own ambition while she bled out in the rain. The FBI got the evidence. The empire fell. 17 arrests in 2 weeks. But Alan and Phoebe? Maya's voice broke completely. They were already gone. The penthouse filled with nothing but the sound of rain and 2 people crying for a tragedy, a decade old that still bled like a fresh wound. The clock on the wall read 3:00 a.m. when Elias finally found his voice again. It came out raw, stripped of every defense he'd spent 8 years building. "Why did you tell me this story tonight?" Maya was still kneeling beside him on the marble floor, close enough that he could feel her warmth, hear the catch in her breathing. The rain had gentled to a whisper against the windows, as if even the storm was exhausted by what it had witnessed. "Because tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of the night it happened." Her voice was steady now, calm, like she'd been carrying this weight so long it had become part of her bone structure. October 24th, 2015, the night the prince died and took his queen with him. Elias's breath caught. "That doesn't explain why you told me, doesn't it?" She shifted, and he felt her hand move closer to his on the cold floor. "You asked me once why I took this job. Why the janitor's daughter would want to spend her nights mopping floors for a reclusive blind billionaire who treats kindness like a weakness. You remember what I said? You said you needed the tuition money. I lied." The confession hung in the air between them like smoke. "The little girl Phoebe saved with that trust fund," Maya whispered, and Elias felt his entire world tilt on its axis. "The $40 million she locked away 3 days before she died. The unborn daughter she protected with her last breath." She placed her small, scarred hand over his. He could feel the rough texture of old wounds on her palm, the calluses from years of hard work. Is me. Elias stopped breathing. I'm Maya Allen Ruiz. Allen is my middle name, my father's name. My mother was Phoebe Allen, née Rodriguez, before she married a monster. My father was Allen the Prince Long, the man who blocked her, the man who chose a crown over the woman carrying his child, the man who died choking on his own ambition while my mother bled out in the rain 30 feet away. No. But even as he said it, everything clicked into place. The way she hummed that Sinatra song on this date every year. The scar on her palm she'd always refused to explain. The fact that she'd sought him out specifically. Applied for this position when she could have worked anywhere. My grandmother raised me, Maya, continued, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. She was my mother's mother, the janitor in this building. She told me the story every year on the anniversary. Made me understand that my father wasn't just a villain, that my mother wasn't just a victim, that people are complicated and love is messier than fairy tales admit. Elias's hand trembled under hers. I tell this story every year to someone who needs to hear it, someone who needs to understand that even monsters can be loved and even love can't always save them. That blocking someone, cutting them out, erasing them, treating them like they're disposable, it has consequences. Real ones, fatal ones. Why me? His voice broke. Why did you choose me? Maya's thumb traced the scar on his hand, the one he'd gotten the night he lost his sight, the night his fiancée had been driving, the night he'd spent 8 years believing he should have died instead of walking away while she didn't. Because you've been blocking her for 8 years, Mr. Hawthorne. Blocking her memory, blocking her name. You won't even say it out loud. And I thought maybe if you heard what it costs to erase someone you love, maybe you'd stop punishing yourself for surviving. Elias's hand shot out, trembling, searching blindly in the darkness until his fingers found her face. He traced her features like a man trying to read Braille, the sharp cheekbones, the strong jaw, the curve of her mouth that he'd never seen but had imagined 1,000 times. For the first time in 10 years, he spoke the name that haunted every nightmare, every waking moment, every beat of his guilty heart. Phoebe? Maya caught his hand, pressed it against her cheek, and then did something that shattered him completely. She turned her head and kissed his palm, gentle and deliberate. No, she whispered against his skin, but I'm what's left of her. I'm what survives when love dies in 90 seconds. I'm proof that even when someone blocks you, even when they choose power over you, even when they let you die in the rain, you can still win. My mother won, Mr. Hawthorne. She saved me. She brought down an empire. She died on her terms, protecting what mattered most. She pulled his hand down and held it between both of hers. He blocked her at his coronation party. It killed her in 90 seconds. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper that cut through the silence like a blade through silk. But she still won. Outside, the rain had stopped. Manhattan glittered in the aftermath of the storm, 10 million lights reflecting off wet glass and steel. In the penthouse, a blind billionaire and a janitor's daughter sat together in the darkness, holding on to each other like shipwreck survivors, bound together by a tragedy that happened before one of them was born and after the other had stopped believing in redemption. Dawn was coming. It always did. But some nights last forever.